Amazing. So everyone that's joining us just now for the recording, welcome. We've just started off with some fun and icebreaker to get in the chat. You are here this evening on our Veterinary Nurse Financial Triage, Prioritising Your Personal Finances, which is a session that as VetYou community, we are thrilled to be co-hosting alongside the fantastic VN Happy Hour team as well. So please do have a little think about the last thing that you bought. We're here to open some conversations around finances and really make that a topic of conversation rather than it being something that's taboo or something that's scary. And that's what we really hope that we're going to do in this first session and break down some barriers. So let's have a little look at getting started, and we're going to make this as interactive as we can do. So please do use the chat box down below. There is no such thing as a stupid question. If you're wondering it, then somebody else is probably wondering the same thing as well. If you do want to direct message myself or any of the panel that we've got here this evening, you can send a message straight to them. If you do hear any jargon this evening that Ruth, the fantastic financial advisor that we've got on with us, uses, then please do debunk the jargon. Please pop it in the chat box, and we do make a donation to Vet Life as well if we hear words that haven't been fully explained, although Ruth is pretty good at that by now, that she explains everything superbly. So feel free to do call us out as well. So I can see we've still got a few more responses to what was our last thing that we bought on lifetime supply. I do think that petrol is probably the winner at some points here, although maybe not so planetary kind, but we'll see. So let's have a little look at diving into this session. We want to make sure that we really do get started soon, rather than us spending too much time going through introductions and so on, because there's some really good conversations for us to have this evening. So I just wanted to spend 30 seconds introducing VetYou, who we are, because you'll notice on here we've got a couple of familiar faces. Myself and Ebony help run in the background the tech for the BN Happy Hour sessions that you're probably more than familiar with as well. So hello, you can see us with a different hat on this evening, and we're really thrilled to be joined by Rachel Buzzell from VN Times, and of course host of VN Happy Hour as well. So thank you so much for being with us, Rachel.
Thank you for having me. Hello everyone.
And I'll tell you a little bit about why we as VetYou are here talking about this. So VetYou was founded originally by Matt Dobbs and Paul Horwood. Ebony joined them shortly afterwards, and I did as well in about 15 months ago now. We're really passionate about empowering veterinary professionals really to take control of their own financial journeys. And that's all members of the vet team, not just veterinary surgeons, but veterinary nurses, animal care assistants, animal nursing assistants, students, client care team members, everyone, because we know how important it is for you to be at the heart of an independent you, because anything else that we do in life then can be slightly less stressful if we know that our finances are in order. But we totally get it. We know that they can feel scary, and we know that often we're not taught about these things in school. So really at VetYou, we're really passionate about opening up the conversations, about connecting you with veterinary professionals and financial professionals, moreover, that actually know their stuff, know our profession, and are keen to help you as well. And that's who we've got on this evening as well, to try and debunk some myths, give us some education, some insights, and hopefully some inspiration as well. So what are we going to cover in this evening's VetYou Cross VN Times Happy Hour, as it were, on personal finances? We're going to do a quick intro to the session, which I will do very shortly. Then we're going to give you the chance to meet our financial expert this evening, hear a little bit more about why she's so keen to help you as veterinary nurses. And it's not just about financial advice being for those people that have got huge portfolios, that have got lots of investments to make and so on. We really want to make this accessible, because you're all valuable professionals and you give so much to this profession that we want to try and help you as much as we can do as well. Then we're going to go through some financial case studies and just talk a little bit around individual cases that are very similar to the ones that Ruth certainly has conversations with on a daily basis from our profession. We're going to have a fantastic team of nurses that are here just to share their own reflections. And really, we've got three main aims this evening. The first one is for us to start talking about finances, make it a bit less taboo, open conversations, and start talking. The second one is to help you realize there are people to help you, and there are next steps that we can take. And the third thing is to help you gain some clarity on what the next thing is that could help you as well. Now, we're all individuals, we know that, but let's look at what would be the most powerful next step for you. And there'll be some hints, tips, and tricks along the way that I know that we'll have some absolute gems from Ruth, because she's fantastic at explaining these things as well. But what we're going to do just before we do dive in to knowing a little bit more about our panel and a little bit more about Ruth as well is we're just going to touch on finding out how everybody's feeling in the room about finances in general. We're also going to look at which areas you most like to learn about so that we can hone in on those case studies and make sure that we cover those topics for you. And finally, have a look at maybe if you've got anything in place already, so we can just see who's in the room. This is anonymous. We're not going to go back through these again afterwards. We just love to know a little bit more about where you're all sitting right now, because that means that we can make the session as useful as we possibly can do for you as well. So please do vote in that poll. Hopefully it should let you vote there. If it can't, for any reason, oh, good, we've got some results coming through. I know we've had a couple of times where the tech has not been on our side. So thankfully this evening it seems to be. I can see we've got a few 4s, 5s, 6s. Good. Let's see, we've got people are quite keen on us talking more about budgeting and spending habits, which I know that Ruth can cover for us. Pensions is popular, savings and investments popular, a little bit on saving for houses and mortgages. Most people got workplace pensions in place and life insurance, a couple of people, lots of workplace pensions. Good. Super. So we can certainly make sure that we chat through budgeting and spending habits, some little bits on protections, pensions, saving for houses. You'll see we've got a few case studies to go through. And please do, in the chat, get your questions in, because this is your opportunity to ask them, ask away to Ruth. Like we say, there is no such thing as a stupid question. So I'm going to end that poll now. Thank you so much, everyone, for voting in there. We'll close that off. That means that we can get started. So about this evening session, why are we here talking about finances for the fantastic veterinary nursing professionals out there? Well, back in November at London Vet Show, VetYou ran a mastermind session where we got together lots of different veterinary professionals and we really did listen to what were the things that you really felt were holding you back in finances, what were the problems, what were the challenges, what were the opportunities, and where importantly could we help? Because like we said, as all being vets specifically on the VetYou team, we know that we'd all got a really diverse range of backgrounds. And we knew that as we extended and we're helping all professionals in the space, there were going to be different challenges throughout. And when we had actually 3 of the panel members here at the VetYou Mastermind, we had Emily, we had Jack, and we had Lacey, they all said that as veterinary nurses, they quite often didn't feel very heard around finances, and they often didn't feel like maybe they had enough cash or they were at a point where they could get in touch with a financial professional. And I know certainly we've got Ruth, who's going to be speaking this evening, had a really good chat with everybody that's on this panel and really helped break down those barriers. And we said, look, next year we're going to do something about this. So here we are, making sure that we are opening some conversations on these topics, providing you with some support, asking and answering your questions and making it open, because we know how important these things are. So I can see we've got lots of things going in the chat as well. Like we say, no such thing as a silly question. And yeah, Ruth said she'll let everyone know how Jack had actually made her cry at the event by some of the personal stories that they were all sharing about how unsupported around finances that they felt as well. So we really want this to be a very safe, very open session. Please do share in the chat box any insights that you got, because we want to open these conversations up. So this evening, like we say, we're thrilled to be joined by VN Happy Hour regulars, Jack and Lacey, as well as Emily Holmes, who is another fantastic veterinary nurse that has just launched her social media and content creation business, as well as Ruth Downs, a financial advisor that I'm going to hand over to Lacey in a second to introduce. And finally, we have been thrilled to be supported by VN Times, VN Happy Hour, and Rachel Buzzell from the VN Times has joined us this evening as well. And she's going to be joining in and chatting around some of these panels too, because it's not just something that is limited to vet nurses, what we're talking about this evening, although the case studies are vet nurses. We all have financial well-being at the end of the day. And I think we could all do with talking about it more and opening the conversations up as well. So let's have a little look, without further ado, at introducing our fantastic guest that we've got this evening that is going to be answering your questions. And I'm actually going to hand over to Lacey because she has worked alongside Ruth to give you a little bit of an insight. So Lacey, over to you.
Thank you so much, and thank you for making these conversations possible. So I am nosy in the nicest possible way. I am just curious about most things. Having never ever spoken about finances to anyone and found it terrifying, I saw an open session at London Vet Show and thought, finances. I've never spoken to anyone about finances. No one's even sat me down and ever explained how to read a pay slip. What's there going to be for me? And in my stubbornness, I thought this is going to be another session when no one turns up for nurses. No one's going to even recognise that I'm in the room. No one's going to particularly care. And it's just going to be another, well, you don't earn enough money, so you don't have money to invest, so you don't matter. And it's something that I felt in other rooms. And I can hand on heart say I was wrong. I turned up to a session and the word vet was used, and I put my hand up and I said, actually, don't we mean the vet team? And straight away the VetYou team were like, actually, yes, we do. We need to be thinking about our words. And yeah, this is a whole team issue. This isn't everybody issue. This is not just veterinary. This is society as a whole. How can we help? Actually, thank you for pointing it out. It matters. And straight away in the corner of the room, Ruth was grinning. And I thought, that's my kind of person, someone that's quite happy, rocking the boat, but also intrigued as to why. And we were really lucky. We were, separated into little groups to discuss some of our concerns and some of the things that, we wanted more information about. And Ruth immediately was like, right, these nurses, I want to understand why they are frustrated about the situation. And for the first time, someone met me where I was. No jargon, no words that I found scary and nodded along, pretending I understood what they meant. Ruth explained finances in the only way I've ever heard anyone explain finances, in regards to a Sunday dinner. And I was hooked. If you talk to me about food, I am in. And Ruth and I have been lucky enough, or I've been lucky to work with Ruth since, because I left London Vet Show almost a bit bemused as to, oh my gosh, I didn't expect this. Someone has listened to me, and I feel empowered to maybe do something about it and continue that conversation. And so we've worked together since. And it was very much the same. It wasn't because I was in a room full of people. We sat down, had a brew, and talked about finances in a manageable and attainable way that I no longer found scary, having got to my 30s, never understanding a pay slip and never having the confidence to ask, because I assume that's what we should know. So Ruth, thank you so much for the time you've given me. And I wonder if you could tell us why you came to be a financial advisor, and why you're so passionate about helping people where they're at, people just like me.
Wow, thank you for that amazing introduction. I've totally emotion here. I needed warning for that intro. Wow, thank you so much. That was beautiful, Lacey. Honestly, my journey began when my mum lives in Cape Town and in South Africa, and I go visit her once every couple of years. And I went over to check on her one year, and her health had massively deteriorated. She was in bed all the time, sleeping, slurring a word. She'd put on weight. And I knew something wasn't right. Long story short, I frog marched her to the doctors, and they were like, she's got 3 weeks to live unless she has a double bypass and a valve transplant. Wow, that was like, I mean, you only have one mum. So I gave up my job in the UK. I completely moved to South Africa to look after her, to have this operation. But they told me to look into her finances because they said she probably wouldn't make it. She was old, she was overweight, she'd left it too late. So I was in a really vulnerable position, and I opened up her pensions and the investments that she had, and I had no clue what I was looking at. It was like gobbledygook. I was like, so what's that there and how is that different? And I reached out to financial advisors in the UK, and they were predominantly male, which is fine, but I was surprised by the lack of like females within the industry. But I'd never had to search before. But they didn't want to talk to me because, and this is summarizing, they said I had nothing to invest, and also I wouldn't be able to understand it in the time frame. Now, that really grinded my gears. Like, I thought, you know what, I just want some advice. I just want someone to explain this to me. And I'm someone that believes it is never about how complicated as something is. It's just about the way that you explain it. Everyone has the capacity to understand something. Just explain it a different way in a language that someone would understand. So I came back and I vowed that never would anyone that knew me not have access to advice ever. My phone is pretty much always on. Jack and the team will tell you that. I love what I do. I completely retrained to do this, and I want to help people, and I never want anyone to be in that position that I was in again. So that's why I do what I do. So when I say I care and I'm there, I mean it. I think financial advice is for everybody. It isn't just for the people who've got millions, because that £1,000 that if you're lucky enough to have in your bank account means as much to you as what £1 million could be for someone who has, earns millions. It's about making it go further and just at least giving people the options to know what to do and where to begin. That's my story. Yeah.
Go for it, Lacey. Sorry, I just saw you unmuted yourself there.
Oh, thank you, Ruth. Yeah, I had never ever spoken to finances, anyone. I'd always handed everything over to someone else, and so I've made some really poor decisions because they weren't based on judgment. So yeah, it's been amazing to actually start unpacking everything, and understanding, why, and being able to make informed choices. We talk so much as nurses to our clients about informed choice and explaining to people what they're agreeing to, what they're consenting to, what the steps after that will be. And actually, I'd never thought about it in terms of informed consent with my finances. I just dug a hole.
I think
in the nicest possible way.
People just need to just know that there is no right or wrong answer. If you spend money on loads of coffees a week, that's absolutely fine. There's absolutely no judgment. I see everything, and I pride myself. Confidentiality is key with what I do, but it's just about you, empowering you to know where that is going and what it is on, and I help you to do that. And like I said, I just want people to know that it isn't about the only scary thing about financial advice is a lipstick that I'm wearing right now. There is nothing scary, honestly. You can ask me any question you want and I'll help you. I'll just set you up with a little bit of a plan and guidance, and the rest is kind of up to you.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Ruth and Lacey, for sharing parts of your story there as well, because I think you've hit the nail on the head with the parallels that we're drawing between our own patients and what we're doing day in, day out, and us looking at treating everybody as an individual. And as such, drawing some parallels amongst our clinical cases, we thought a really cool way for us to approach this, rather than us just doing a session where we talk at you with lots on pensions and lots on income protection and lots on all the individual things, for us to talk around some case studies that are maybe trying to depict some demographics amongst the veterinary nursing community, where we'll just look and reflect as individuals and then ask Ruth the questions with in mind that the people that are on this session were really keen to hear about budgeting, spending habits, a little bit around savings and investments, and talking a bit around things like income protections, pensions, and so on as well. So we've just had someone asking in the chat if they'll be able to ask a question, if they're able to email privately. Absolutely. If you want to drop us a question to hello@vetyou.co.uk, we can get that across to Ruth as well, or you can direct message it in the chat box as well. So we wanted to head into some case studies here, and we're going to see how many of them we get through. Please do drop your insights in the chat there too. Make sure that you interact if you'd like, ask the questions, direct message any of us. Like we said already, there's no such thing as a stupid question. So the first case study that we've got here, and then I'm going to hand over to our fantastic nursing panel to see what their reflections are, is we've got Hannah, who's a 21-year-old nurse, just qualified as an RVN, earning about £19,000 a year. She's full-time employed. She does have a workplace pension. She's quite unsure of the details. Doesn't have any protection policies. So by that, we mean things like income protection in place. She does have some credit card debt from when she was a student. She's quite worried that she's not going to pay that off. Feels like she lives in her overdraft, which I can feel like I resonate with a lot of this from my earlier days. Currently at home with the parents, and she'd really love to buy a home, but she has no idea where to start. So I'd love to start off by handing over to the nursing team just to reflect on where that sits with them, because I think the more we can open up conversations around finances, the more we make this easier for everyone else to speak. So I'm going to hand to Jack first.
Hannah literally is my alter ego, I think, from like 5 years ago. And yeah, I think I read that case study as that she's at a bit of a tipping point with that credit card, and that is a lot of money on a credit card. But I look at that as actually kind of wishing that that's all I had at that age. I fell into the massive trap of payday loans, and I was the person who always used to look at the TV when the payday loans on the screen and say, what idiot would take those out? Like, look at that massive number at the bottom with a percent sign next to it, and didn't even know what the word APR meant. So I then just snowballed and buried my head in the sand. So I can imagine in that aspect, she's thinking, how do I pay that £1,050 back? And also, if she's living in her overdraft, what do you even approach first? There's also the workplace pension she doesn't know about. She's earning sort of £19,000. Where do you even go to when you start to when you start digging yourself into a hole? You either try to get out of it, or you bury your head in the sand. And like me, if you bury your head in the sand, it gets worse and worse and worse and worse until you have nobody to turn to. Well, you do have someone to turn to, but I never expected to be able to go to a financial advisor at that point, because I just thought they're not going to be able to wave this magic wand and say, here's £5,000 to pay off your debts or something like that. But what they can do is probably give you a plan and what to pay off first, because I had no idea on which ones I was paying off with a lower interest than the other one, and various things like that. So yeah, you can get into a very dark place with it, which is financial well-being, and that's why we're all here. So I'm not afraid to tell my story of the mess that I got myself into, because I hope that there's probably other people out there who may resonate with it potentially, or maybe think twice about doing what I did, because it was probably the biggest mistake of my life. So yeah. But in Ruth's experience, where would you begin to start in that aspect of that person's case scenario?
Yeah, thanks for that, Jack. I look at this and I think, okay, she's just qualified, so she's now earning substantially more than what she was, and she's living at home. So the first step of anything is I would look at that financial questionnaire. I would get her to fill that in to work out how much she spends, and on what. So it could be, has it been going out? Has it been, how much has been on, socializing compared to on any training kind of material or anything, and finding out, okay, how much do I come out with per month now that I'm employed, how much do I earn? How much do I spend? And then working out what that disposable income is. Now, disposable income is you take your income that you have every single month that comes into your bank, and then you look at your expenditure. So that is how much you pay per month. So it might be, it's not on rent because she's living at home currently. And then you take that away, and that gives you disposable income of how much you're left with. So we look at that and we go, right, okay, if you've not got any disposable income there, so your expenditure is more than what you're bringing in income wise, then we need to look at where you're spending and where you can make savings. Because maybe you don't go out 3 times a week, for instance, and I'm not sure, it's all individual to that person and what they're spending on. But just looking at going, okay, gosh, I didn't realize I'm actually spending this much there, or I'm having that many coffees a week. I always mention coffees because people don't realize. You go now and it's like, what, £2.90 or £3 wherever you go to get a coffee. Now, if you have 5 of those a week, that's a lot over a month. You're looking at 60 quid a month that you could easily save just by making other provisions. So I would look at that first, and then I would look at the credit card, take your head out the sand, look at how much you're paying in interest on that. It's just knowledge. It's just knowing what is where. I've had people who've been saving for holidays over paying a credit card off, and I'm like, pay the credit card off, and you've not got that extra interest that is going there, and then give yourself a goal that you can have an amazing holiday in 6 months' time or in a month's time once you paid it off. But little and often, you can't eat an elephant whole. So look at things one step at a time, and then we'll work on it. Maybe save £5 a month, into putting a plan in place to pay that credit card off. But yeah, and then obviously there's different, pay off debt as much as you can first, but it depends on everyone's circumstances. And then we could look at putting a plan in place for a home. Even a little bit a month, it will empower you to know that you're doing something and saving for your future. And that is quite an incredibly powerful thing.
And we've actually just popped the link in the chat as well. You mentioned the financial questionnaire, which is something that you'll hear us talk a lot about at VetYou, which is a fantastic resource that Ruth has created, where you can go through and put in every individual bill that comes out of your account, everything that comes in. And we've popped the link, like we say in the chat, to that. If you hate spreadsheets, you don't have to do it on the Excel document. You can grab a notebook, you can do it with a pen and paper. And I know that perhaps Lacey and Emily will add to this as well, but actually it feels like a really big thing to do, but actually I can tell you it won't be as difficult or as big as it feels, and actually you might be surprised by what you see at the end of it. I know Lacey, you shared reflections on going through the financial questionnaire before.
I did indeed. I'm not very good at accountability. I like to run away from anything like that I find scary. And I almost thought like someone was going to tell me off. But it's my money that I go and earn for a sheet that I filled out that I didn't actually have to show anyone else. And it was really surprising when I went through a financial questionnaire where my money was going. I couldn't understand each month where my money went, because I work really hard and I work a lot of hours. I was doing loads of extra. And when I sat down and worked out the financial questionnaire, because I was locuming and traveling all around the country, I was losing money by working more. And I'd never sat down and worked it out. So actually, I took off an extra 2 days a month because I realized that it paid me more, which made no sense at all. And it felt really wrong. But actually, I just never had that accountability to look where my money was going, and to make sensible choices. I point blank refuse to give up coffee. I don't smoke. I don't particularly drink. I don't really go out as much anymore. And coffee's what I do to relax. I go and find a nice coffee shop. And for me, that was really important. but I wasn't asked to give it up. I was just asked to be accountable for it. So I'd rather go for coffee than have a t-shirt in the sale that I won't wear again. So I just started making more sensible choices. I certainly didn't go cold turkey with my spending. And so when I looked at these case studies, the first one really resonated because I held down 3 jobs. I left home at 17. I didn't have, and so I was working so much while trying to study, and same as Jack, fell into a hole, didn't know who to ask, didn't know where to ask. And so I wish if I knew now, if I knew then what I know now, and I'd have been able to just ask somebody, well, I need to climb out of a hole. How is the healthiest way to do it, where I can still have nice things, you know, and have a good quality of life? We work a stressful job. I don't want to give everything that I enjoy up, but if I could have climbed out of that hole a lot sooner, I probably would have been a lot healthier. And it's only when I didn't have the stress so much about money that I realized how much pressure there'd been.
I remember, Lacey, when I first asked you to do it, if you don't mind me saying, you were like, oh, no, I'm not going to do it, you know, and I'll try and put time aside. And then after a couple of weeks, you messaged me, and I think your words were, wow, that didn't take anywhere. I sat down with a brew. I was ready for like the whole morning. And you were like, it took me an hour to just go through it. You were like, that was amazing. I had no idea how quick it was going to be. And like I said, you don't have to, the financial questionnaire that they've kindly uploaded, it doesn't have to be that. It can just be a spreadsheet. It can be a piece of paper. It can be whatever is the most comfortable for you. Just somewhere where it's written down where you go, oh, okay, I've got that account for that, and I pay that out of that, and I pay this here. And it also helps you to know, because I always say to anyone I work with, if you pay things by yearly, then just put yearly and the total amount and the date, so that you know when that big payment is going to come, so that you can plan for it, instead of going, oh my gosh, I've now got my car insurance to pay for, and it's this much. And we can make a plan for that. So whatever is easiest for you. But I always remember you, Lacey, just being like, oh, it wasn't anywhere near as bad. It took me like an hour or something.
I bought myself a celebratory cake
for an hour.
I love that. And like we say, we've popped a link if anyone does want to have a look at that and do it in a way that suits you. In fact, and we've popped this in the chat too, Ruth has always kindly opened a diary to chat one-on-one with people. Those first calls that she had are completely complimentary, and there is a link actually in there where there's a short video just goes through how to fill out the questionnaire, where Ruth and I chat through it as well. So let's just look at breaking these things down from being scary to being doable. And I love the things that you've just shared there, Lacey. It's so resonates with me, so relatable. And I think that's a big call to action for anyone that's on here as well. If you want to do something as a result of this, let's make that first step, just getting that clarity of, okay, where am I at in a way that works for you? And that's something that I know that Ruth has helped guide people through. And certainly when it comes to things like whether that's income protections and financial products, that's something that I know the financial advisors need to be able to see, so that they can see that you can afford those products too. But I was just going to actually come to Emily and see, Emily, looking at this case report, have you got any questions for Ruth or anything that you'd reflect on here as well?
I definitely say I'm with this case study when it says workplace pension, has no idea. I know I've got one. I know that it's there for when I'm old and I'm not working anymore, but as far as it goes, that's pretty much it. So yeah, I definitely like to ask Ruth, for somebody like me that's a Neanderthal with these kind of things, to explain it in a simple way that is not just a load of words that I don't understand.
100%, and call me out, please, if there's anything that doesn't make sense. I love it when people do that. So workplace pension schemes, they were brought out in 2012, and the short of it is because people were living longer and the government couldn't keep up with helping to try and pay for them when they were in retirement. So they said, right, okay, we're going to make people save into pensions And so every company, if you're employed, has to set up a workplace pension scheme. Now, usually there's a 3-month enrollment period. So what they do is, because it costs them money to set employees up with this, what they do is they say, right, okay, as long as you've been with us for 3 months, because that gives a good kind of insight into whether they're going to stay, we'll enroll you on it. So they have what we call a deferral period of 90 days and 3 months. Now, after that, you're automatically enrolled. Now, what happens, as long as you earn, let me caveat that, a certain amount of money and you're over a certain age. So what happens is the company minimum is 3% of your salary that they have to pay in, and yours personally is 4%, and then the government top it up by 1%. So in total, it's 8% that is saved into your pension kind of per year. So like I've said, there's workplace pension schemes, you are saving towards your retirement, but some of them are very, very basic. They do the job because the government have said you've got to set people up with these. So eventually, when you hear about people going, oh, I've got a private pension or I've set something up, you can set your own up, whether that's with a financial advisor or whether that's with, I think there's a couple of, there's another company that Raindrop, isn't it, that you can pay into as well, that VetYou also have. So that's the difference. That's what workplace pension does. It saves to retirement, and you can usually access that from your retirement age, depending on when you were born, but I think it's usually about 58, 59. Does that help?
Yeah, it definitely does. And it's one of those where, there's all these different things that go on, especially with finance. And I think, especially for me as well as a nurse, because we always feel as though, because again, we had this conversation before about feeling financially inadequate. When you think about all of these big things, like sort of like pensions or like financially, or like insurance or income protection, stuff like that, I think of all of those things that are available to us, and I think, well, I don't earn enough to be entitled to any of this stuff. I've just got to suck it up and go with it. And I just think it's why I'm really happy to have these conversations, especially like with Ruth. And remember when we had the one at London Vet Show, I came away, like Lacey said, so empowered, because it was like, actually, it was the first time as a nurse I felt seen financially, and that everything that we talked about was accessible.
I think there's a good question as well that came up. So the percentages that I quoted, those are the minimums that you have to do. Some companies have better benefits, so they'll go, right, well, I tell you what, we'll pay 5% into your pension, which is great. And then there's other things called salary sacrifice, where you can sacrifice part of your salary to put into a pension as well. But I'm not going to overcomplicate it. It's just different companies have different rules. And if you're unsure, please, like Hannah, simple thing, email your HR department. There'll be someone that that you can contact and just say, can you just let me know who's my pension with and what my pension number is? And then you can contact the provider directly, find out how much you've been contributing. They usually have online platforms as well, so you can log on and find out yourself. Just ask. They have to tell you. They've set it up and you're paying into it, so find out what it is. That's what I say. And when you leave as well, and this is important, if you go to another job, just always remember where that pension is, because sometimes it can get lost. I'm a big fan of amalgamating, so bringing together all your pension pots, because you can have so many and it's so easy for them to get lost. And that's why some people set up private pensions, because then I call it, they have one home for every pension that they have. So whenever they leave, what a financial advisor will do is then take that pension for you with written permission, and will put it into that one home for you. And then when you join another company, they'll set you up with another pension, as long as you're over a certain age and earning a certain amount.
That's definitely me. After working in with different companies, and you saying your pension will get lost, I'm like, yeah, there is definitely one with one company I work with, and I can't for the life of me remember what the pension provider's called, so I need to chase that up.
It doesn't matter, Emily. There's a wonderful government website. When someone's talking, I'll just Google it and then put it in the chat. But even if you type in Google, find a pension, and then put government in, it will pop up with the government website. And then as long as you can remember what the company was called that you worked for, you can type it in and it will pop up with the pension provider.
Oh, amazing.
Yeah, so I'll put it in the chat and it's very simple to follow. And then you can find where it is.
And I'll just add in as well, we've got an event just on pensions on the 31st of May where Ruth is going to be there alongside Raindrop, the company that she mentioned already, and we'll be talking in a lot more detail on pensions. And actually, just before we move on, someone's just asked in the chat box here, Ruth, I thought the retirement age was 67. I wonder if that's worth touching on when we can retire versus state pensions, I guess.
Yeah, brilliant. So if you set up a pension, companies will have their own kind of retirement date for you. So I'm going to be really embarrassed here. I'm 40 years old. So the earliest that I can retire, stop laughing, Katie.
I'm not laughing. I'm just wondering where you get your skin cream from.
Yeah. Bless you. So I actually... there's also a government link I'll put on as well, which will tell you the earliest time that you can retire. So for me, it's 58 if I have a private pension. Now, state pension, different. State pension is you've been paying, if you look at your payslip, have been paying national insurance contributions. So that allows you to gain, should we say, years to get a state pension. Now, the state pension usually operates 10 years from if you have a private pension, when you can have it. So obviously for me, 58 for a private pension, or for some company pensions I have, or 68 for my state pension. Now, you have to have been paying every year 35, well, for the minimum 10 years of national insurance contributions to access any form of state pension. For the full, it's 35 years. But once again, I'm just so conscious I don't want to overcomplicate it. But I'll put the link in as well in the chat so you can look at when your earliest, should we say, time is that you can retire. But once again, state pension operates 10 years after when you have a private pension. So that's what that is. But we cover that as well in the pension talk, don't we, Katie?
We do. Thank you so much for that, Ruth. And to summarize Hannah, I guess here, going through, she can email her HR department to find out a little bit more about the workplace pension, so she knows what's going in. We'll talk a little bit more about protections, I think, on the next case report. We'd said with the credit card debt, the first step would be filling out the financial questionnaire, finding out where the land actually lies, what comes in, what goes out, starting small, doing little and regular bits, investigating and finding out where perhaps what interest rates and things like that she's on. You could absolutely help her if she got in touch. You could help her and look at doing things like the financial questionnaire, look at getting things like protecting her income in place, investigating more into pensions, and things again like saving up for a house, again you were saying, is little and often, and just getting into the habit of being a person that saves and is good with money. Is there anything else you'd add to that, Ruth, before we move to the next one?
No, nothing as of yet. I think this is great. We'll move on to protection, but 100%, I just want to say about if you have credit cards or any form of debt, don't beat yourself up over it, okay? It's not a problem if you have it, then let's look at how much it is. Just take charge and go, do you know what? I'm just going to embrace it, because guaranteed they're going to be taking their percentage every single month. So it's about you knowing, okay, let me find out how much it is and let's put a plan in place to try and, target it so you don't have it anymore.
And I think, like you said already, having that plan and having that clarity can be so empowering, because Jack, you'd shared some really powerful things in the chat about this as well, about quite often when you were in that place with the cards, the thing that you want to do is kind of spend more to make you feel better as well.
Yeah, I think it's quite easy to look at it as a credit card, that you spend it and it's like it doesn't come out of your current account, if that makes sense. So you don't see that you've spent it. So you're like, oh, great, I can go and buy something on that. And it's not come out of my total money that's sitting in my current account, but you're paying interest on it. So when my friend sat me down and sort of made me go through it when I was burying my head in the sand, we wrote every single one down and wrote the interest rates on all of them, because I didn't even know the interest rates on all the different cards. Turns out I was spending money on the one with the highest interest rate rather than the ones with the lowest interest rates. So it's just handy to know the interest rates, because then you can target which one you're paying off first as well, I think. I don't know if that's what Ruth would recommend, but I had a store card that I was paying 50% interest on, and I was paying off the minimum payment each month, and you're just never going to get anywhere. So, but again, never learned about it, never knew what I was doing. I was like, I'm paying the minimum payment. That's what they're telling me I need to pay. So that's fine. But yeah, you just don't know about these things until you speak to someone who does. So I'm just very lucky that I had that friend well over a year ago who could sort of advise me on that, and I was comfortable speaking to them.
I just want to say as well is that, companies, I don't want to generalize this, but some companies are really naughty and they shouldn't charge the amounts that they do, and it's not allowed to. And there are other people who can help you if debt is something that you are struggling with and have to deal with day by day, that can help you look at how to put all those in one place and then have an affordable minimum payment that you're able to pay to work it off, because they shouldn't. I think there is limits of how much they're able to charge you, but unless you embrace it and actually highlight it, then they get away with it. So let someone have a look into it. Would you agree, Jack?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, a classic scenario of that was the payday loan situation, because they charge an extortionate amount of interest, and I got to the point where I couldn't pick up the phone to anyone because I was worried it was them, and to the point that my mum rang them up actually. So again, very lucky that I had that person to do that, to ring them up and say, these interest rates are ridiculous, you need to freeze the interest. And and at the start they said no, and she said, well, I'll just take you to the financial ombudsman then, because you can't keep putting him in difficulty and doing that. And then they were like, oh actually, yeah, okay, we'll do that. So
naughty.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, it grinds my gears as well. Yeah.
And you know what, Jack, thank you so much for sharing that, because I know you certainly won't be on your own with that. And I know that people hearing that, if they are in a similar position, I really know that that's going to give them some hope. And I know it's not easy to share these things. And I just really appreciate all of you being on this panel and sharing so openly and vulnerably, because we're not taught about money, yet we expect ourselves to know about it. And I think just like you said on interest, we don't know what we don't know. And that's why we're so pleased to put these sessions on. And like Jack said, if you find yourself in a position where you feel like you don't know what to do, please reach out, speak with Ruth, reach out, talk to someone about it, because there are actions that you can take and there are ways that it can be easier. So I reckon we've got time to do another case report on here as well. I love the conversations that we've had around here. Please do, as the next one comes up, everyone that's on the call, drop into the chat if there's anything that you really resonate with on here. I'm just quickly going to whiz through this one, then I'm going to come back to our panel and see what your thoughts are around this as well. So we've got James is a 34-year-old RVM. He's a locum. He's been qualified 10 years. His earnings vary each month. He does a mixture of sole trader and 0 hours contracts. He's got a pension from a previous job, but doesn't have anything else in place. He doesn't have income protection. He's worried because he has a history of IBS, irritable bowel syndrome, and not sure who's going to get cover. He does have about £4,000 in savings, but he's no idea what to do with it. He's not really interested in buying a house, but he'd like to travel. And I love that last point, just remembering we're all individuals. There's no set thing that we have to do with our cash. Goals wise, it's about us thinking about what we want. So I'm going to hand to Lacey, having been a locum and also obviously having done a lot of different things in your career, to reflect and share some bits on what your thoughts are around James and throw some questions to Ruth.
Oh, James. So I got in a spot of bother in 2018. I had within a week, I lost essentially my home. I quit my job. I left a partner. and the world crumbled. And the one kind of stable thing in life was I was a vet nurse, and I could do that pretty damn well. And so I did. I worked my butt off as a locum, here, there, and everywhere, anywhere around the country, didn't really matter. Just me and my dog, and we went to work. I had already dabbled in locuming under an umbrella company, and I'd chosen an umbrella because at the time I wanted to buy a property, which we successfully bought, and then I ditched. I didn't really have savings, so unlike James, I didn't have anything to kind of fall back on, but I could work really hard, and I had a lot of work. It came in thick and fast, and so in my efforts to try and figure out what I wanted to do, I didn't want to buy a house straight away. I wanted to go and find happy again and have life experiences. I'm one of those people that when I'm old and grey and sat in a nursing home, I want to have stories, and I want to have all these tales rather than things around me, and that's just a personal choice. And so because so many bad things kept happening, I decided that with all this money I was accruing, because I was working my butt off, I was going to go and travel, and I was going to go to a different country. Every time something went bad, I was going to add another stop on my world trip, and I did. But I made no plans, and I am epileptic. That strikes at any time. I had no income protection. I'd left a partner, so there was no one if anything went wrong, and I made no attempt to create a safety net because everything that happened meant I didn't want to plan for the future. I just wanted to live in the moment, and that's great, but it took me so much longer to recover in so many ways because I didn't think about it. I didn't want to think about it, and I didn't talk about it, and in amongst the kind of the world crumbling, and having lots of external pressures and mental health concerns and struggles, I didn't at any point acknowledge how much stress and pressure I was feeling because of finances, because all I saw was that I was working really hard and money was hitting my bank, and I got sick. I got really, really sick. And so James really resonates with me because I didn't know what income protection was. I had no health cover. And at that point, I couldn't have any. And I had this dream to travel. So all my money had gone on that. And there was no plan for when I came back from traveling and what to do next. So James resonates in so many ways. But when I came home from traveling, I went, oh, I've had this epic trip and now I really need to do something. Actually, I want some stability, and it was stability that I'd been looking for the entire time. And so I started again. I went back to locuming. I was still a good nurse, and I didn't have the opportunity to be a sole trader at the time because I decided that I wanted to buy a home, and I had to do it solo. The thing that would have been really helpful for me would have been to reach out. I have a brilliant personal friend in Mollyfiander, but I was embarrassed to ask. I was embarrassed to ask about the options I had as a locum because I'd been locuming for so long, everyone assumed I knew what financial routes were available and how I would earn money. And so I was so experienced of being a locum, everyone assumed I knew. And because I'd been a locum for so long and everyone assumed I knew, I didn't ask. So I wondered, Ruth, for someone like me that was starting over a little bit later, what I could have done differently, because I certainly know now I could have asked so many people.
I think it's just, well, first of all, forgiving yourself. Because can I just say, I've spent years training to do this. How the heck are you meant to know what options are available to you? This is my career, I couldn't come in and do your job. The same thing, you couldn't come in and do what I do. So just ask someone. And you know what? if you speak to one person and they're a bit funny, you know, or they don't give you the advice, you know, then reach out to another, because not all financial advisors are the same. You're so blessed in that genuinely you have VetYou who genuinely care about you and want to give information. So they've done their due diligence on me. So they know that I'm not going to turn anyone away. They know that I'm good at what I do, and that, you know, that I give the advice. They've got testimonials. So you're in the right place. It's just reaching out and asking, but getting your head above the parapet and going, okay, I'm going to do this. Because if someone doesn't give you friendly advice just in the first instance, it says more about them than it does about you. So that's the first thing, because advice is, you know, you can get advice and call me up and it's completely complimentary. You know, I'll help put you on the right track. If you're starting again, then of course we need to look at where you're at that current position. So I'm going to say, get that financial questionnaire out. This isn't a one, can you fill it in once and that's it for the rest of your life? It is going to change based on your job, based on what you do throughout your life. So it's looking at where you're at that time. And then once again, figuring out if you can afford to have income protection. And I just want to say that just because you've got some condition of some sort, that doesn't write you off from getting protection. There are providers that will offer terms to you based on, I mean, it's so individual. It's you know, and all I can say is the company that I have, they will give you free quotes and will look specifically and call providers on your behalf to find out what is going to be the best one for you, for potentially any conditions that you have. So you can still get it. Income protection, just want to clarify, that will protect your income should you be off from work, sick or injured. So what that will do is cover up to 60% of your salary, because let's face it, if it covered 100%, then no one would go back to work. You'd constantly always be ill. So they will cover up to a maximum of 60%. And there's lots of other things that are included in that. So you will, you know, income protection, once again, it's protection and looking after you guys is priority number one, because should you be off ill for any reason, then you're not going to be able to pay any pensions that you might have in place, any protection or anything else, let alone just your bills. So I'll be saying to you, let's look into that. And if you've got, a free service like the one that we provide, then why not use it? You're on this call, you're taking. So that's one thing that I'd be saying. And as for, the savings that's on here, then help that to go further. Inflation at the minute, I don't know if you log on the news and you read, it's abysmal. It's going to go up to like 6.6% inflation. So that's what the cost of goods are last year to what the cost of, say, a basket of goods like eggs, milk and bread will cost this year. So it's going to go up by 6.6%. And it's quite high. So we need to make sure that any savings you have are not just keeping pace with inflation, but exceeding it. And I'm just going to leave this with you. Do you know how much your bank account, current account, is offering you in interest currently? Because if it's over 0.01%, I would be very surprised. So that's why I'm saying, let's make sure that we make your money work as hard as possible for you. And I'll give you your options. I never tell my clients what to do. I just give them their options, and then we come together to make sure that you get the best decision for you and your circumstances.
Thank you so much, Ruth. And I think it just comes down to what we've had again and again is like, we don't know what we don't know.
Yeah. So
actually just sparking those bits of interest to say, you know what, I'm going to go and check, because our interest is the amount that we're accumulating for it being in an account. And like you say, if things are inflating quicker than we're gaining interest, we're losing money there as well, aren't we? Which is actually a bit of a mind blow when you come to terms and you realize that one. And we've had a lot in the chat, quite a few people resonating with Lacey's story there. And I'm just conscious of the time because we're just coming to past, and we've pretty much got to the end of this case report. I'm going to ask everyone for some reflections in a minute as well. And hopefully we do have another session next week where we can answer more specific questions, and we can maybe do a couple more of these too, because I think we've had such good reflections and insights and shares from the fantastic panel that we've got here as well. But to summarize, I guess, for James, and as Lacey has said, kind of starting again, we can see there'd be a lot of benefits from speaking to someone like Ruth, and looking at what can we do with that £4,000 in savings? What are our options with it? Income protection. I know certainly from a VetYou point of view, we see a lot of people find out about income protection when they wish they'd had it, because someone said, and I can see that Ruth has got head in hands, oh my God, I did not know that that existed. So if that's something you are interested in, again, in the same way that we advocate for our own patients and we fight our patients' corner at the pet insurance companies sometimes, and I don't know, say him limping on that front left paw as a puppy is nothing to do with him doing this when he's 10 years old on his back right leg, Ruth and her team will fight your corner as well. And we've seen that many times too. So I know Ruth's going to add to that, so go for it.
Yeah, I haven't told you about this, Katie, yet, but I was speaking to a veterinary professional the end of last week, and they were going to look into income protection. I put them in touch with the right people, and you know what happened? She was the sole earner of the family, children and everything. She had a hit and run with a lorry.
Oh no.
Yeah, and she didn't contact the team in time, and I cannot get it out of my head, because I was like, it was all there. You just had to pick up the phone and speak to someone. I'm honestly not making it up. It's just follow it through, just do it, because you will regret it if you don't. And that is an honest story from the end of last week. I came out, I was just in shock, and my team were like, what's wrong? And I was like, I just can't believe something I've just been told. So yeah, it's worth its weight in gold to get it, because you'll regret it if you don't.
And that's such a powerful insight, because I think so often we talk a lot about in the profession where we're working with paws and claws and hooves and teeth and so on, but actually sometimes we can be injured unexpectedly outside of work, whether that's in the car, that's walking down the road. You know, we never know what's going to happen, and you're all so valuable that we may as well protect that. So we know that if something did happen, we wouldn't be spending all of our savings on tiding us over for however many months. We'd have that protection in place. Someone's just asked in the chat, can this recording be watched again? I think some of my colleagues would find it useful. Yes, we will be emailing you the link out as well, and it's currently just on our Facebook page too. So I'm going to whiz through a couple of slides here, because we've not got time to do the other two case reports, and then I'm going to come to our fantastic panel, including Rachel, for some of their insights from here as well. And like Ruth said, protection is so important. I know we've just scratched the surface here, and every one of these case reports are just examples, and all of you are different. So we really would just implore you, spend some time on the financial questionnaire, start opening conversations, book in, have a chat with Ruth. Like she's here to help. You've seen time and time again in the chat how the brilliant panel we've got here have all shared their own reflections on how brilliant it's been to speak to someone that actually cares and is on your side, because we all are as well. So I'm going to whiz past these. This is the financial questionnaire that we have been talking about. The link Emily has kindly popped in the chat box quite a few times for us. You can download your own copy. It's in the top left, the Padlet. You'll see there's loads of resources, lots of recordings from previous webinars, loads of questions that have been asked before, dissecting pay slips, all the stuff that we wish that we were taught at some point, probably years and years back, you'll find on there. And it's all totally free to access as well. We just want to help. And then finally, I was going to ask you, and we'll whiz around while everyone's here as well, let us know one thing that you learned in this session. Pop it in the chat box, because between this session and next session, we will pick 3 comments at random to win a copy of the To an Amazing Vet Nurse book that I wrote and has been really popular, and we make donations from Vet Life to there as well. So let us know what you've learned. I will sign those, write those to whoever you want them to go to. Just let me know, and we can send them out as a special surprise for one of your friends or for yourself. But share in the chat. We'd love to know what you've learned on this session. And I'm going to whiz through our panel. I'm going to come to, in fact, Rachel. I'm going to ask Rachel, what have you learned on this session?
I was just typing it in the chat box, but I think that I've learned it's just I need to start asking more questions. You know, I've realised that, you know, I have a workplace pension, but I don't really know anything about it. I know I pay into it, but that's about that's about it. Do you know what I mean? I don't know that much about my current account. I just know my money goes there. So yeah, it's just made me realize that I've got to start asking a lot more questions about where my money is and what it's doing and what have you.
Amazing
Yeah,
insights.
thank you, Ruth.
And let's have a little look. I love that. And I think, again, it comes down to we don't know what we don't know. So let's ask the questions and not be afraid to have them answered by the people in the know. Yeah, and absolutely. Emily, I'm going to come to you next.
I've learned that there is nothing wrong with not knowing. I think following on from Rachel's, and that, you know, finances aren't scary when you've got somebody like Ruth that can actually talk to you and it not be like through one ear and out the other.
Beautiful share. Thank you so much, Emily. And I hope others are feeling the same as well now. So just pop it in the chat. We're to be in with a chance of winning one of those. We've had a couple of comments already. I'm going to come to Jack next.
It's kind of similar. Ruth made a comment of that she wouldn't be able to do our jobs as veterinary professionals, and we wouldn't be able to do hers. So you should come to us for animal advice. So go to someone for the advice of what they know in their specialist field, because I think we're too hard on ourselves for not knowing everything. And my big thing is that you don't learn it at school. It's not taught. So unless you've had that person in your life, then you're not going to know those things, and that's completely okay.
And that's such a powerful parallel to draw as well, isn't it? And I know that Ruth would very much agree with that, because she has a very cute cat that quite often makes appearances when it shouldn't do. She's usually in the background climbing up the bookcase or something, isn't she, or attacking your legs in the background, and Ruth would come to us. So yeah, 100%. Like, we don't know what we don't know, so let's reach out to the people that want to help us. And I'm going to come to Lacey next.
So for me, I don't regret any of the, you know, amazing pivots in life I've had. I don't regret starting again. I don't regret traveling the world. I don't regret any of those things. The biggest regret I have in regards to finances is that I didn't talk about it. I didn't talk about it with anyone. And knowing now, you know, some of my closest friends are on this call, and none of us knew when we sat down at LVS that all of us had struggled. None of us knew. And we will share some very deep, dark secrets. And I'd never discussed with them how many times I'd cried over finances, how many times I'd worried, that I'd, you know, worried about, you know, the worst, not having somewhere to live or any of those things. And it was really sad. And I found it sad to know that people that I truly cared about had felt that worry or that shame. I'd never thought about it about myself. I didn't really, how I felt didn't to me matter. But knowing that some of the people I care about more than anyone had felt that worry and shame was awful. So, you know, the reason that most of us are sat on this call is because we care. And I would hate to think that anyone that sat and listened or commented tonight felt that they couldn't talk to someone, because the mental health impacts are huge and we don't talk about it. We don't talk about mental health and money in the same sentences. I don't regret my adventures. I regret not sharing the lows and the worries, because there were so many people that could have helped the entire time.
Oh, can I just say as well, is that what people put out there of, oh, I'm having this amazing time, they never tell you about the times when they've struggled or anything. So, you know, just give yourself a bit of a break and reach out to someone who can give you a little bit of friendly advice, and that's it. And the best thing is, it's not going to cost you. So yeah, I'm more than happy to help.
I'd like to add into that as well, like as Lacey said about mental health, you know, when you think about mental health and self-care and things like that, self-care doesn't have to be, you know, going outside or going to, you know, journaling or stuff like that. It can be taking control of things within your life, whether that is finances, your environment, you know, being able to have somebody that can offer that service to you. You are still investing in yourself, even if it's not something that you would typically think is self-care related. And I think that is really important for everybody to remember and at least take away from this call.
Definitely.
I would like to add that.
Go for it, Rachel.
Sorry, Katie. I was just saying, I would like to add that I've been looking at the chat box, and it's just so nice. So many people saying I've realised I'm not alone, and that's just isn't that what this is all about? It's just amazing, isn't it, that people have realised they're not on their own with this, and I think that's incredible.
It's
Definitely.
Mental Health Awareness Week, and this year the theme is loneliness, and how many people have felt lonely with their concerns over finances, and yet it resonates between so many of us on one call on a Tuesday night.
Yeah.
And you know what, I can't thank you all enough for those reflections, because they're so powerful, and this is exactly why we wanted to put this session on, because you know what, we're one big team. Veterinary nurses are so valued by so many of us, and it made me so sad to hear that so many people didn't feel like they were worthy of this advice or this support. And like Emily so rightly said there, 100% finances are so closely linked to our mental health, our well-being, and sometimes it is that fierce self-compassion, that piece of, you know what, I'm going to take some action, because the momentary discomfort of going asking for the help around this is going to be offset by the peace of mind that comes at the other side of that as well. And I can see so many beautiful comments that have come through, and for anyone that's not able to read the chat because they're watching the recording, I'll read a couple of them out, because this just goes to show that I can't thank all of this panel and Ruth and Rachel enough for being here and knowing what a knock on this is going to have. So I can see we've got it's so fundamental, this talk about financial and well-being, because everything's connected. This is absolutely true. Everyone should see the session. It's so great that vet nurse is and their finances are being acknowledged. Thank you, everyone. I've learned so much. It's okay not to have all the answers or to be able to deal with everything yourself. It's okay to seek help and advice. I've learned it's okay to ask about finances, and vet nurses are entitled to financial advice despite not being high achievers. Thank you for this empowerment. I've learned that there are so many people in the same position as me with finances. I'm not the only one. This has been such an amazing chat, and I can't wait until next week. I really thought I was alone and found it scary speaking to financial advisors, but Ruth is lovely. I've learned I'm not alone with financial difficulties and debt, and there's a help available tailored for this profession. So, I mean, honestly, like, I'm blown away. Thank you so much. I'm so privileged that we could put these sessions on for you. So thank you, everyone. Be crying in a minute. Anywho, I'll move forward with the rest of our slides, and just well done for being on here. So I was going to ask you, like, where are you at the moment? Let's take a second and think on that. Let's think on this in terms of our well-being, in terms of, like we say, our self-care, but also in terms of us taking a little bit of action. And Ruth used one of my absolute favorite phrases, and I know Emily will have picked up on this as well. We can't eat an elephant all at once. We have to eat it one bite at a time, just little bits. So what is going to be our first step? So is it that you're at the bottom, like, I need some clarity, I don't know what's going on with my finances, and that's okay. So the first step will be to fill out the financial questionnaire, and maybe just figure out what goes in, what goes out, without judgment. Okay, let's not beat ourselves up that we spent that much on coffee or whatever. Let's look at it from a really neutral point of view. Maybe you're at the point where you're still investigating. Maybe it's that you're just finding out the answers to those questions, like, what are my interest rates? I'm emailing the HR department. I'm just finding out and gathering those little bits of information. Is it that actually you said, I've done this session, I know that I want to put more into a pension, I know that I'd like some income protection, then booking a call to chat with Ruth. Like, you can talk to her at any stage, but if you've gone through and done their financial plan first, you'll really be empowered to be in a position to take action. Or maybe you're at the point where actually you have a lot of this stuff already. Maybe you've been in the position where, and I'll tell you, it's probably quite a low number of us that have already realized that income protection is good. Let's look at pensions, let's plan some investments and things like that. And you want to review it because this is an ongoing process. I know Ruth will tell you that as well. It's not something that we put all those things in place and then we never come back to it again. You know, our finances are our goals, to our vehicles towards our well-being and where we want to be and what our long-term plans are. So let's be empowered by that. So just as we then move forward next week, we're going to talk through some more of these case reports as well, because I think they've done really well. They've opened up some fantastic conversations. I, for one, have loved it. We can talk around a little bit more around your own financial plan. And this is what Ruth talks to you about. Like, let's look at all these individual parts. You'll see we've got loads of recordings on our YouTube channel. You'll find them in the Padlet that we shared, the digital delegate bag. And then finally, we've got some calls to action. If you would like to have a little look, like we said, Ruth has so kindly said you can book in a 30-minute complimentary chat with her. You'll find all the information on that link there. Can we help you with something else? Is there another topic? Like Lacey mentioned, VetYou work closely with the amazing Molly Fiander. She helps nurses think about what route is best for them with their locum work, and then sends a lot of them across to us to connect with the accountants that we work with. We've got loads of accountancy events where we've talked through these things as well. We've got a full events menu that are all free, all no stupid questions, all open to the floor like we've done here. Check us out on social media. Don't forget to check out VN Times on social media as well, and fantastic VN Happy Hour resources that we've popped in the chat as well. Spread the word to your colleagues and friends. A few of you have said, oh my goodness, everybody needs to see this session. Share the recording with them when it comes through. Tell them to sign up to VetYou, because this is what we're all about, opening these conversations up. And we would love to see you next Tuesday. Maybe even at that point, you have filled out that financial questionnaire. Lacey mentioned accountability. And actually, sometimes it's thinking, you know what? In this week, I'm going to section off some time. I'm going to grab my cup of tea. I'm going to buy myself a cake as a reward. And I'm going to do it. I am going to do it, because that clarity is power. And quite often we kind of have this idea, we were chatting about this before we started, oh, my income's about this much, my outgoings are about this much. Let's get an exact figure. Let's know where we sit. And then we'll be able to move forward with that, even if it feels a little bit scary. And I wanted to finish off by saying, first of all, a huge, huge thank you to all of you for being here and giving yourselves this, what is now nearly an hour and a half on a Tuesday evening to take some action in Veterinary Nursing Awareness Month, in Mental Health Awareness Week. On a Tuesday in May, whatever day we want to call it, you have taken action and you've been here. Secondly, I want to say a massive thank you to Rachel and the VN Times team for supporting us on here. We always love working with them on VN Happy Hour. It's such a fantastic event, and to let us take the handle and take the reins of the month to talk about such an important topic has been an absolute joy. So thank you so much to Rachel and the team. And a huge thank you to Ruth for her expertise and for being so supportive to the whole of the profession, as she always is. We constantly get fantastic feedback. Ruth is so kind, so generous with her time, so open, and wants to help you all. And finally, a huge, huge thank you to Jack, to Emily, and to Lacey for sharing so vulnerably, being so open, being so kind, being so caring, and gifting your time to open these conversations that I can see from the chat box have had such a massive knock-on effect. So just a huge, huge thank you. And we really look forward to seeing you all next Tuesday at the exact same time. Please come with all your questions, armed with them, spread the word, tell everyone else that they need to come along as well. Because imagine what a difference it would make when we're all empowered with our finances and realize that you are all worthy of financial advice and timely and expert help as well. So thank you so much, everybody.
Thank you. And thank you to Katie and to the VetYou team as well.
Thanks, Katie. Yeah, thank you so much.
You are most welcome. Oh, thanks, everyone. I can see we've got some lovely comments coming through in the chat. I am going to stop our recording.